The project started in the end of 2008, and it was a history project initially because the History Society decided to try and capture the heritage of the village in terms of its nickname of the Orchard village of North Yorkshire. So it tried to capture, and did capture, all of the history, anecdotally and factually, over the 300 years that we've been growing fruit in this village. The upshot of that was we wrote a book about it, which highlighted lots of things. The fact we traded with Captain Cook as a village, the Whitby whalers, and also how we actually provided tons and tons of fruit every year to jamming factories and also to the market. People used to drive on an old 1920s bus to Thurst Market with all the produce and put it on the cobbles and sell it there every Monday. So a lot of history, and the village, as I say, was going to lose that history and that heritage were it not sort of recorded. So we did that. Out of that project we decided to maybe try and preserve that heritage in terms of the fruit trees and the use of the fruit that's already existing in the village, plus try and replant the orchards that existed in the village in 1856, which was a very clear stake in the ground moment where we had a map that showed every apple tree and every fruit tree in every garden and in every orchard. So we set about, and we have planted 700 trees now at the school, in our own orchard, and also in other people's gardens where those orchards used to be situated. That's happened, and obviously when you've got all those trees growing and all the existing trees that we had, it made sense to try and do something with the fruit that we already had and will have in the years to come. So we started something called Orchards of Husthwaite. 5 trustees now, there were 3 originally, all got together and planned and applied for grants to actually try and create what we're seeing here, which is a production unit and also manufacture a product naturally without any added ingredients that we could sell on the market. That's happened, and we now have a range of ciders, apple and pear juice, and also a range of liqueurs using our fruits, so apple brandy, pear brandy, and slow gins, damson gins. They all get produced in here, and we sell to about 15 retail outlets and on Hovinger Market every month, and also to beer festivals and to a few pubs. We're in Hugh and Annie's polytunnel, where Hugh very kindly every year grafts hundreds of apples, scions onto rootstocks, 106 rootstocks, predominantly rare, unusual and heritage varieties. We try to do all of the Yorkshire varieties, which is around about 20, plus we then go for things that most people will have never heard of. There's a really rare Black Prince apple, which we've got 2 of, that I believe are probably only less than 10 trees in the country like that. Plus we've got our own local varieties, which again, by definition, are quite rare. All manner of things, unusual names: Dog Snout, Dabanet, which is a cider apple, Hanwell Souring, Irish Peach, Ashmead Kernels, which is a 1700s English apple, one of my favourite apples, beautiful apple. So we've got, as I say, if you include the pears and the plums, close to 300 trees that we will sell through the year. We'll plant some through the year as well, where there's an opportunity in the village to replant some more. The balance will get sold, and hopefully we'll keep all these rare and unusual varieties going for time immemorial.
And obviously there are people here who are very skilled in doing grafting and things like that, but are other people coming on board and learning the skills and bringing back the traditions?
I think they are. I think people get interested from seeing it happening, and certainly we've done about 5 workshops now at schools, in our school in the village and other schools, where we actually demonstrate grafting so they can see how to make a baby tree at the primary school level. So yeah, hopefully that inspires other people to get into it.
And if I can interrupt slightly, you did a course for
the
whatever they call them,
FWAG, as it was, a local wildlife and agricultural society, and we've done, and again Hugh was greatly involved in that. We did a course on maintaining orchards, grafting new trees, and basically looking after what we've got in a way that makes it sustainable.
Hugh, can I just ask you for a minute, if you can...
Let me just return back.
So can you tell us about your role in the project then?
I, as Cameron said, do roughly
300 graftings a year of trees for Cameron. So this is the fruits of my labour here, part of it anyway. And we've just got to the stage now where the graftings are being, they're being unwrapped, and one assumes they've taken, one hopes they've taken, most do. And then from here they get staked, and if we have room, some come outside. Because in here they grow too fast.
Last year's here, actually. These are all last year's with fruit on and ready to go.
That's
So
the
they have
remnants
their
of last
first year in the polytunnel.
More or less. Some do, some don't. See, these are all first year.
They've come away fast.
This is all first year. These are the ones that I've now unwrapped, staked, and cut off the side shoots where appropriate. And these will put on probably another foot this year, something like that.
Yes. It's such a sun trap
Yeah.
here that they thrive. Whereas we are at the barn is north facing, and we've had them outside there.
Yes.
I've done 100, 200 out there one year, and the growth level was about 60% of here, just because of the
It's a really sheltered
better
sunny
environment that they're allowed to prosper in.
The other thing, of course, is the technique of actually the grafting is that we now bring on the rootstocks before we graft. So the rootstocks are growing before you graft onto them.
Is that a change then? Were you doing?
Well, previously we just did it as we got the rootstocks. The whole lot was done in a bit of a rush.
Right.
But I think it's better now.
Yes, and we give longer rootstocks, so we're getting a much more established tree at the end of a year, let alone 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, you see something that's 5-6 feet tall. So it's quite a substantial.
So when you started off in this project, Hugh, what were your sort of knowledge and skills in terms of tree grafting?
Oh, limited. Limited.
We both learnt about the same time from the same person, didn't we?
I have a book. Oh yes, well of course we went to Simon and indeed Charlie, but I think Simon was the one who really taught me the Northern Fruit Group. But there's also a little book called the Grafters Handbook. This is a great standby.
Right.
When in doubt, refer to the Grafters Handbook, which is an old book.
But you're continuing to learn. You were showing some pears earlier on that hadn't been quite successful.
Yes,
So
pears are more complicated because they don't all. Apples are fairly simple, in that they'll take on just about anything that is of the malus species. Pears are much more complicated, and sometimes you have to double graft.
Can we just go back to basics for a minute, because some people might not know about grafting and rootstocks and things. Could you just give a sort of very potted explanation of why fruit trees are grafted?
Right. Fruit trees are grafted, apples are grafted, one for the size of the ultimate size of the tree. The ultimate size is controlled by the rootstock. So you have M106 that produces a 12 to 15 foot high tree, M25 that produces a 25 foot high tree,
Right.
and actually M9 which produces a 6 to 8 foot high tree, which is actually quite convenient. So the numbers aren't supposed to relate, I don't think, to the ultimate size. It's just when they were
Quite
developed.
close.
But
So that's
it
some
gives you a good
nameless
idea.
species. It's just become a number now.
Yes,
This-
it's become a number.
Right.
It also, apart from the size, it gives to the apple scion certain properties of bug resistance or early fruiting or various other things that you're looking for if you're a commercial apple grower.
Right.
So
the rootstocks have been bred to be vigorous,
yes,
disease resistant, and
of a
able to
specific
take
size.
anything you give them, basically, in terms of different varieties. And then the scion that you graft onto the rootstock then becomes that tree. So the rootstock is just really a host. It's just something that carries whatever you want to put on it.
Yes, yes.
So the actual grafting is cut it right down to basics. It's a cut at an angle,
Yes.
and you join the two together, and you strap together, and then you sort of cross your fingers and hope that they match.
Well,
Yes.
Create the graft. or-
90% Hugh's sort of hit rate. 90%.
90%?
Plus. So
See,
it's a tongue and groove graft.
there's the rootstock,
Yeah.
and there's the graft, which, as Cameron says, is tongue and groove, and that was done on the 17th of February. So it's been 3 months.
So when they're dormant, but just about to launch into
We've waited this year
Sap
until
rising.
the rootstocks are growing away, until the sap is rising in the rootstock, and we keep these outside where it's cold, and the rootstocks come in the polytunnel.
Right.
And then in the last fortnight I've been unwrapping the graft and tying them onto stakes and bringing them out here.
And does that, to my mind, that's obviously an area of weakness. Does that
Yes,
become
it is.
as strong as...
Yes,
Yeah?
yes. By next year it'll be as strong as the rest of the tree.
Calluses over and it's...
If you look at these in the back here, don't know whether we can see one easily.
There's one. See how solid that is now. And it actually fattens up a bit, so it becomes
right.
slightly...
It might
Bigger
always be
jump.
stronger than the main stem.
Yes, you can see there's a
okay.
good one there, where it's totally...
Yeah, it's thickened up.
And the beauty of these 106s is you have to support them with stakes for 3, 4, 5 years, but after that they get roots that are deep enough and they're actually substantial enough in trunk terms to hold themselves up. So they're low maintenance in that sense.
Can you just tell us about the importance of local varieties that have grown here for years and years, and why that's better than in bringing in trees?
Well, my take on it would be that the varieties that have survived much harsher climates than we have today have got that ability to have vigour and consistency in this area. So if they've been growing here for 300 years and producing good fruit for 300 years, why would you not use those varieties, if they're good varieties, which a lot of them are, rather than bring in Brabants from New Zealand and Fujis from Japan and various other species that have become popular through supermarket selling, but really have no benefit over what we have already.
Yeah. And taste?
And taste, some of these are fabulous.
Yes, the supermarkets have a lot to explain in the reduction of apple varieties that are commonly available, because the supermarkets want an apple that'll travel well, tastes nice, looks nice, but doesn't necessarily have the depth of flavour or the varieties of flavour that you can actually produce by growing them yourself.
And we're looking. I'm looking at one of my favourites, Ashmead Kernel. Absolutely beautiful apple. So nutty, so sweet when it's ripe. And it's been growing in this country for 1700. I think it was first recorded. So hundreds of years. Now, why would we not have that as a local or a national variety? Good as any apple. Bit like some of the russets. Same again. But they're just not popular for people that have been brainwashed by Golden Delicious.
Can you tell us a bit why, going back sort of historically, why the apples disappeared from Husthwaite at one time?
I think it's pure commercial, because they were commercially grown and traded over centuries, weren't they? They're certainly one way or the other. Not just apples, to be honest. Plums went to...
Commonly it was the farmer's wife's little perk,
Yeah.
the orchard attached to the farm. So she looked after the orchard and she sold the apples, but she only sold them locally. So after this Second World War, and indeed after the First World War, when the agricultural revolution developed, if I can put it like that, and there wasn't the manpower to pick the apples and look after them, it went into progressive decline. And many of these won't transport, they have to be consumed locally.
Right.
But also the supermarket and the Golden Delicious and the sort of management of apple production became so mechanised, and these trees and these types of orchards with big old apples, they couldn't be farmed, if you like, as efficiently as what they do in Kent now. And the English apple business industry's had a renaissance, because they've just done what everyone else does and put little trees, MMO9s, in straight lines with I don't know how many to an acre, and they just mechanically harvest them and grade them. And then the other thing was the ability to store them in gas-filled chambers for 6 months. So the brand you'll buy in June in Tesco's will have been picked in November and just put in a gas warehouse, gas-filled warehouse, and stood there until Tesco's drew it off.
I'm about to cut the plastic tape that holds the graft in place, and fingers crossed when I've cut it we'll see that the graft has taken. But there were obviously problems with this tree because it hasn't come away as well as some of the others.
It's actually, I did a load of them. They are really slow growers, because I've got one I put in the garden that I decided was not at its best, but it's actually got half a dozen flowers on it. It's 2 years
Yes, there we are.
now.
It's all right. It's taken.
I mean, can't you assume that it's taken because you've got leaves and blossom?
No, because there's life in the old scion which is
it would
related
grow
to the
anyway.
food stock in the scion, which would grow anyway.
Oh, okay.
What you need to get is the cambium layer of the rootstock matching the cambium layer of the scion, and that's it sort of healing itself there. The lighter green than the bark colour is where the graft was, and that has taken.
Right.
And that will then callus over.
And that will callus over
Yeah.
and produce a conventional apple tree.
So just like a human wound, that needs air now, and it
Yes,
will,
it does, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
The Orchard Inn has had a variety of names since I've lived here, but it changed its name to the Orchard Inn 2 years ago. The main reason being it again wanted to go back to reflect the heritage of the village, and we have an orchard at the back of the pub that we've planted, and so the current owner felt it appropriate to actually be part of the renaissance of fruit growing and orchardry.
And they sell your
They sell our cider and our juice, yes.
Brilliant.
The village is laid out in a very traditional garth system, whereby each house was allocated originally by the landowner a strip of land behind their house or their cottage, and that became their working land where they grew fruit, they kept chickens, they kept pigs, and they lived off it. And also in the case of our village, they paid some sort of rent for the cottage back to the lord of the manor for being allowed this land to work. That's gone on for centuries now, and everyone who still has that garth have done different things with it. In the case of this one, the Orchards of Husthwaite very luckily has about 2 acres at the bottom of this garth, which is a double plot, so there's about 7 acres in total. 2 acres of it we have as an orchard, and we've got 230 trees down there. The lady who owns the land is one of the trustees as well, similar to where the production unit is. Jim's one of the trustees, and so they've obviously got involvement in the overall project. They help us manage the orchard and spray and treat the ground so that we can actually get the maximum production out of our trees.
So here we are looking down. Don't know how much this camera will pick up, but if you could describe what the view
we're looking
at.
down now across 3 fields on 3 different levels. First field's got 2 beehives in, which hopefully helps pollination. Second field has got a little flock of rare breed sheep, which keeps the grass down, and the final field, which takes it down to the beck and a pond down there, has our 230 trees in it. Interesting point of the beck at the minute is that we've discovered otters are in the beck, so and we've also freshwater crayfish we've found down there, so quite a lot of surprising wildlife lives down there. I saw a buzzard down there the other day as well. We, when we set off the project, obviously knew that eventually we'd sell things and we'd make money. So the structure we agreed on was that we match fund, part fund, different things, different aspects of the village in terms of its needs and the existing groups' needs, because we had churches, history societies, village halls. They all are very limited in their income generation, and we were able to maybe support them in getting things that as a village we were never going to get any other way. So what we've done really from the start is put some money into the village newsletter, which has helped enormously to keep the communication flowing. We also fund all of the websites, the hostings of all the websites for all the groups in the village. I think it's up to about 12 now, and they all get done for free by a superb web designer called Laurie Hill, who lives in the village. He does all the design work. We pay for the hosting of them all, so that they all come free to the user groups. We then got on to setting up our apple fair, because one of the reasons I came to this village was to enjoy an annual fete that they had. It was a superb traditional country fete. That went in 2000, and so what we've managed to establish now in conjunction with the school is an apple fair every September. 800 people came last year. We bought the marquees and the other kit we needed to actually get that set up and running. And as I say, we had 800 people. We have Hovigan Market there. We had 10 live music acts, cider competition, and then dozens of fun fair, and dozens of really interesting stalls. A lot of it's sustainable stuff. We have a sustainable musician that gets children on the day to make musical instruments from cans and recycled stuff, and ends up playing with his little orchestra that he's created music for everyone. So really nice family fun day out, centred on children, centred on celebrating the fact that we are an orchard village, and you know, we've been prevalent in the region for growing fruit for centuries. So we fund that. That's part of our input. We then got on to more infrastructure things that people needed help with. For example, the mobile library shut. So we actually paid for 24 foot of library shelving on wheels, folds together, and once a fortnight that comes out with thousands of books in there now, and they have a coffee morning and a book exchange. So the library that went away when the local authority cut the van has now been reinstituted as a village library, and very successful it is too. We also funded and gave this start-up money to something called now the Orchard Club, which was the Evergreen Club. Again, an institution that existed for decades and then folded in the 90s, and it's people of any age really, but predominantly over 60. And once a month they have a meeting, they'll have a talk, they'll have some people entertainment, they'll get lunch, and we funded that and got that started. So that's happening now. Big push in our village for a new village hall. So we've now agreed to fund, match fund £7,000 of our profits to go towards the ground source heating and the underfloor heating in the new village hall if and when we get it. And we've also helped with the bid, so we bought printers and things like that allow them to do a professional job in the presentation of the applications they have to do. So we've got a big A3 printer, laminator, and so that sort of funding has helped to move the bid forward. Also committed, though I haven't paid it yet, to funding for the refurbishment of a pavilion at our multi-use games area in the village, playground, activity park really, where there's loads of exercise vehicles, plus also a multi-purpose court where you can play football, tennis, volleyball, basketball, and so we're going to give them the money to actually refurbish and kit out the inside of this building that we've got a grant for to actually build. And it needs to be said, because it is a seriously cooperative approach, because all of the materials are being given by builders and a window supplier within the village. So it isn't just us, there's lots of people chucking in either time, effort or material. So this is being built really on a shoestring, but we'll end up with a really nice finished job. And a lot of that happens in the village. A lot of other people do lots of things, and that cooperative approach to things that we need to do and have has now become part of the culture, if you like, of this village. Other jobs that are ongoing at the minute, I guess we will continue to support the village hall as much as we can, and also try and match fund things. One idea came up this week where we have a short mat bowling set up for the village hall, which again crosses all age groups from 8 to 80 can do that indoor short mat bowling. So we might well want to try and fund something like that, or part fund something like that. We've also put money aside, £600 aside, to help part fund the new door for the church. So the church needs a proper door, because it's had a bit of a lean-to thing for years. So we're going to have a made in the village by a village craftsman door made to give it a little bit more gravitas rather than some wiring that just covers the frame at the minute. And that's really where we are, and I believe and perceive that we'll do whatever seems appropriate with the money we make, right down to sending people on respite if they're carers. You know, that's something that's been discussed and might well happen. So there isn't a sort of a fixed template of this is what we'll do with the money, but it will reflect the needs of the village, and it will be invested into the village in some way going forward, and that's hopefully a source of money as long as somebody's prepared to do it.
And when you talk about you know, the we. Could you just kind of describe a little bit about the structure?
Well, it's a very loose and fluid structure. There are 5 trustees. There are probably, in the times that you need help during the season, probably 15 people who have been skilled and trained to press fruit, bottle fruit, pasteurise juice, and do all the associated jobs that they involve. But probably 15 people fully trained on all aspects of that. There's then probably about another 2 dozen people who'll pick apples for us or bring us apples from their garden, and will also offer to do bits and pieces and help, you know, for an hour or whatever. And so that takes us through the season and gets the crop in and gets the crop pressed and into vessels fermenting or pasteurised into bottles. But then when you come to the apple fair, there's about 70 people will help one way or the other, whether it be erecting the tents, serving on the tea, serving on the bar, managing the bouncy castle, and I think I counted up in total, someone asked me how many people have done something, about 70 people out of a village of some 400. So quite inclusive.
And the money that you raise, what kind of sort of income are you sort of generating each year?
It's quite interesting. It's as much as we want to almost, because we sell out of everything every year we've done it up to now. So it's just a question of the availability of me, my time, and the people with the most knowledge, and then the availability of people to take some of the jobs like manning the market this Saturday at Hovingham, so that we don't have to do every one. And it's a balance, and like anything that's involved in people volunteering, it's an organisational nightmare because everybody wants to do it, but then something comes up at the last minute and nobody's obligated to do anything. So you're wrestling with that perpetually. But going back to your question, we can make £10,000–15,000 a year quite comfortably if everybody pulled together and we got the same work done year in, year out, infinitum. As long as there's apples and pears on the trees, then we can generate that income, because we can turn it into something. And I think the same applies to anyone. You don't actually need the apples. You know, I met a lady last week who's got a bit of land, and she grows tomato plants, pumpkin plants, and she's got her own little business where she just has a few polytunnels and she just takes all the seeds in and gets them started, and then lo and behold, she had a van and a trailer full of stuff to sell last Saturday when I was doing a little market. So anyone can do it, and any village can do it, as long as they've got the energy and a little bit of space to actually create something. And the one thing I've never done, but I've always desired to do it, is create a hydroponics setup where you're actually growing salad, vegetables, whatever, 24/7, 365 days a year, and you need a little bit of heat, a good polytunnel, and a water supply, and that's all you need basically. And I'd love to do that.
Sounds like there's another idea bubbling along there.
There probably isn't, because it's all time driven, isn't it? But I'd love to probably do it for myself and just experiment and see what watercress in December that I've grown myself tastes like. So yeah, there's lots of ideas.
And finally, what do you and the other trustees get out of it? It must give you a more sense of satisfaction walking around the village and seeing these trees growing everywhere and people involved.
If you go back to the beginning again and what I said, it started off as a history project, and it started off as a way of recording, capturing, preserving our heritage, and then it became doing something proactive with our heritage, because we still have this heritage and we planted trees which produce fruit. So the pleasure, I think, is in sustaining our history and our heritage and turning it into something that people can enjoy. As most people like the apple juice, and most people even like the cider now. So the satisfaction is in making something that people appreciate and value, and the byproduct of that is that we actually get things that we'd have never got as a village. So it's a complete cycle of events, from the apple to the new ground source heating that will eventually go into the village hall that we part funded. And that's the satisfaction.
It's a brilliant success story. Thank you so much.